We are live. It is podcast time. It is SCW Rewind Armageddon 2000 is the show that we are going to be reviewing today. Hi, welcome to the show. Joined by the one and only Barry from NonStop Wrestling Chat. How are you doing this Friday?
Fantastic as always, man. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving into this show. Obviously, it's the one everyone voted for. And, of course, it's most famous for the only time we've had a six-man Hell in a Cell match with some of the biggest names in WWE history. What were your thoughts when you first given this show?
Man, originally, I never liked the six-man Hell in a Cell. When I was a kid, I loved it. And then when I went back and watched it, like, a few years later, like when I was, like, 14, 15, I was like, no, this isn't for me. But I watched it like twice this week, and I'm really, really enjoying it. From my list that I've done this week, it's up there, and I think it's pretty good, man. But the whole show was average, kind of one match show. But I was happy with this pick. It's a difference than what yourself, Rated R, and the stuff that we used to do last year, watching the terrible shows. But it was an okay one, a different. I wasn't calling any names this time, which is good.
That's always good to know. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice that there's not heat coming when we're coming to them. Because sometimes we have the good cop, bad cop chemistry sometimes. I will give like a more generous rating. Some of you are like, nah, I don't know, that's a dud for me. So it'd be interesting to see how we actually rate that and how we go through the show as well. Because like you say, there is a heavy focus on what the main event is, but obviously we do have 8 matches throughout the entire card. Some of it is rushed in places, but there are some little hidden gems in there as well. If you like some good spots, some good moments. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, everyone else that has watched this show or watching this review will enjoy what we've got to say about it. But if it's your first time watching it, please like the video, share it with a friend, subscribe as well. And we are going to dive in now to Armageddon 2000, which took place on December the 10th. This was in the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center in Birmingham, Alabama. That is a lengthy one to say, I've got to say. The attendance was 14,920 in the Civic Center, and the buy rate was 465,000 on the buy rate, because of course this is about 14 years before the WWE Network, a very different time period where buy rates mattered than probably what they do now for WWE. But yeah, I mean, looking at it, we had a nice intro package to start off the show as well. Obviously, a lot of destruction, and one of my favorite theme tunes as well that WWE usually plays for Armageddon is actually from the originally, I believe, from their Judgment Day shows, if I'm not mistaken, called The End, where we've got The End is Here. I think that's absolutely genius. What were your thoughts when you saw this video package?
I loved it, man. This is, like you, this theme song is one of my favourite ones. I think this was used a few years later as well for, I'm sure it was either Undertaker, JBL, or John Cena, Eddie Guerrero maybe. I don't know. It was another match. It was pretty bloody, and then it was like, this was the song for it. I remember that. But I love this, the package, the theme song. Got you hyped for the show, didn't it? You're like, this has got to be such a good show. And they've done a good job the whole way through it, getting you hyped for that big match.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, obviously, we will sort of break it down into parts, but obviously, on the build to the main event, a lot of the focus is put on the idea of this Hell in a Cell match. 6 superstars have been put in. Mick Foley is the commissioner. It's seen as reckless by a lot of the people backstage, particularly Vince McMahon is not in favour of it. Of course, he'd been off TV. He returned on the build to this. Obviously, was the start of the build to the WrestleMania program, of course. Linda McMahon, which obviously built to the infamous Vince versus Shane match. And of course, there are some bits here of the beginning ingredients of what led to arguably the greatest WrestleMania of all time, WrestleMania 17, obviously with the likes of Chyna and Ivory, for example, as well. We do see a stare down between Austin and Rock later in the show as well during the Hell in a Cell. So there's lots of nice little delightful parts that come into this show. But obviously, on commentary, we speak of delights. Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler. It doesn't get much better, does it?
That's just my childhood growing up into that. Just those two in commentary is just for that period in wrestling as well, which was just a ton of stars. Those two guys in commentary calling it in the ring. It was just great. It's just great listening to those two guys talk, especially since we did get years of pretty bad commentary teams. But this was a really fun. I love listening to Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler just rabble on like random stuff that how we, especially Jerry, just you're like, what are you talking about? Like, but it's fun. It's something different watching the match, and you've got like a wee comedy show on the side.
Absolutely. Do you know what I really like as well? Just they have these little quibs they throw in. Like sometimes you can have like a promo package going on, and someone's talking, giving a big important line, and you just find it's like a 2-second line, where the 2-second gap from the promo, where they can just sneak in a quick one-liner, and you just think, God, that's genius. How did you get the time to fit that in so perfectly there? It's absolutely brilliant.
It really is, man. I think it's probably one of the better commentary teams that we've ever seen, and I don't think we're going to reach that level again of how good those guys work together, because it just works so well. Like, we're two different people that just worked well talking about wrestling, which is something that it didn't seem like it was a scripted like commentary team. That obviously they've got a script there. It doesn't seem like it. It just seems like they're just sitting there telling you what's happening in the ring, which was always fun, and it's always cool to go back and see it as well.
Absolutely, indeed. It just seems it flowed so well. And obviously, we have mentioned also already the idea about Mr. McMahon obviously turning up in the limousine there, and they're saying like that it's going to go ahead this, and Vince is like, I'm going to put a stop to it. So that's a sort of little early dynamic of it, but we'll go back into that in detail as we go chronologically through the show. So without further ado then, Barry, I think it's time that we go into our first match on the card, which for me, I was quite excited about. It was a 6-person elimination match, basically. We had the Hardy Boyz and Lita taking on the Radicalz. Now, obviously, there was a bit of build that went to this match as well, with Dean Malenko, of course, beating Lita on a SmackDown show. And of course, he said if he won this, then he would actually get the opportunity to take Lita on a date. We see then on them having this date, and Dean Malenko saying that this is going to be something that you're never going to forget. And Lita said, well, maybe it's a night you'll never forget. They go to the restaurant together, and they're having a dinner, and Dean says, you can't ignore your feelings anymore for me. It's there. There's this natural chemistry. Lita's saying, yeah, I want you. Let's do this. And Dean Malenko's very like, check please. They get back to the hotel room, and of course then Lita, she's dressed as she's dressed. We'll try and keep it as PG as possible. But yeah, she's definitely something where Dean Malenko's eyes couldn't wander anywhere else. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I mean, obviously, he gets asked the question about his wife. He says, let's talk about that later. Let's not talk about that now. We've got more pressing issues at hand. Let's turn out the lights. And obviously, that's when Lita goes, well, actually, the lights go out. And she goes, I prefer to have the lights on. And that's when the lights come back on. Matt Hardy's waiting there with a champagne bottle, and he says, champagne, smashes it over the back of Dean Malenko's head. We then see Jeff Hardy's there as well. The beatdown from the Hardys and Lita on Dean Malenko, turning the bed over as well onto Dean. Obviously, was a night he would never forget. But yeah, video package, a lot of fun this.
Definitely, man. It was, like you said, Lita had... If you go back and watch it, go back and watch the wee package. Dean can't look anywhere else, can't you know? But you always forget, looking back, you've got like in this match, Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Lita, Perry Saturn. But when I was younger, you just took that for granted because that was just the undercard wrestlers. And then I like the wee package, the build up to it as well was pretty fun. Like you, I was excited for this one. I thought it was going to be a good opener to the show.
I totally agree with you. I was really buzzing for what this match was going to deliver, and obviously, like you said, we take this for granted. I'm watching a lot of WCW right now. That's what I go through on the side of the modern product. So seeing Malenko, Saturn, and Benoit and Eddie Guerrero on a regular basis with the Radicalz as the full group, I really get really hyped. Obviously, now that I get to see him in this show in the WWE environment as well. But very quick opener. Obviously, we'll just go through the falls here, basically, of how this match breaks down. But obviously, we get the first fall where we get Eddie Guerrero eliminated like 4 minutes into the match, which does seem criminal when you think what Eddie went on to go and do. It was a twist of fate hit by Lita, a swanton bomb by Jeff Hardy. We got onto fall number 2. There was whisper in the wind attempts there by the Hardy Boyz. Saturn, who I thought was an MVP for the Radicalz in this match, caught Jeff Hardy, hit his Death Valley driver to get the pin on Jeff Hardy. And of course, we go through that similar pattern once again. We find Matt Hardy hitting the twist of fate to eliminate Perry Saturn after Dean Malenko was hit to the floor. At this point, the Radicalz had Terry Reynolds with her at ringside for this match, and Terry gets in, confronts Matt Hardy, but is speared by Lita, which takes Terry out of the ring. Obviously, Jerry Lawler gets an eyeful as well, gets extremely happy on commentary. And of course, as both are watching Terry go out of the ring, Dean Malenko pushes Matt Hardy into Lita and actually manages to get a roll up there to eliminate Matt Hardy, which leads us to the final two of Lita and Dean Malenko, where this main story, I guess, started and where it concludes as well. But Lita hitting some big moves, including the moonsault, hits a DDT as well. But Dean Malenko does manage to turn the tables, and he has Lita beaten on a couple of occasions, but opts for a submission victory instead with the Texas Cloverleaf. After the match, he kind of takes out the trash, I suppose, is the way that it was put over on commentary, throwing Lita out of the ring. But of course, the Hardys come and make the save. And then obviously, Michael Cole, at this point, a very young Michael Cole, coming up to the Hardys and Lita. Not the best time to give an interview to Lita, but it's when she's been knocked out and just submitted to the Texas Cloverleaf. But still, she does say, I know I can beat Dean Malenko, as she's taken to the back. But this was action-packed. This was very quick. In fact, this opening contest was 8 minutes and 6 seconds with 5 eliminations there for your Survivor Series style match. What were your takes from it, Barry?
It was, like you said, it was too quick, wasn't it? The 8, I could have done for another 8 minutes on top of that. I think it would have, there's stuff that could have been cut down throughout the show, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, but I think this one could have done a wee bit longer. But it was fun. It was a lot of action in it. Like you said, Eddie Guerrero being the first person to get eliminated seems criminal. Like, it's like, how could you do that to like get it? Like, he's just, but he goes on to become, even what is 2002, 2003 when he wins the championship. So 3 years later, it's like, why did you think that was a good decision? But I enjoyed this match. I thought it was fun. It was, Lita looked really good in it, doing her moves. It just, something that I did write down was it shows how good Dean Malenko is. He can put over Lita and make her look like amazing in the ring. Because we see her, she does stuff with like Trish Stratus, she does some stuff with other wrestlers, but it never really looks as sharp as what it did with Dean Malenko. And it's obviously just how good Malenko is in the ring. Like, it's just fantastic. Like you said, you go back and watch WCW. I'm watching the 1997 stuff just now and seeing Malenko at that point, just even against a jobber, you're like, how are you so good? Like, you see the guy next week, you're like the jobber's terrible, but Dean Malenko's still just putting on like a fantastic match again. But this was just kind of carried by Malenko at the end, obviously. But I thought this one was a good opener, a nice opener to the show, and you just looking at the names that are on this list compared to like an opening match that we get now on a pay-per-view, you're like, I miss those days.
Yeah, well, you're right. It was fun. It certainly had the fun factor. Like you say, I mean, Dean Malenko, criminally underrated. I think a lot of people say his WWE career was maybe a bit of a flop, but if you look here, he was one of the MVPs of this match as well. I said Perry Saturn did some really impressive moves in it as well, but obviously Dean Malenko was the sole survivor of this match. Of course, was the Cruiserweight champion at that current point as well. But yeah, I mean, for me, this is a lot of boxes, and to give its star rating for Mr. Dave Meltzer, because well, a lot of people like to know what Dave thought about this match before we give our thoughts. He gives this a 2 1/4 star. I think that's a fairly fair rating. I'd even go up as 2.5. I think a longer time for this match to let it breathe a bit, I think could have pushed it to the 3.5. But certainly, for what it was, I enjoyed the opener.
I've went for a 2 stars, man. I'm back to being my harsh critic as always. 2 stars. I think it had to be a bit longer than it, especially the later stuff in the show that we see that we're going to talk about. You're like, you could have cut a lot out of the rest of the show and give it here and then give it to some other matches as well. But 2 stars, if it was longer, it would have been cool. And you know, I'm never a big fan of like a 6-man tag, or I'm not a big fan of like the multi-person. I mean, I like my tag teams, 4 people in the ring, and then just like just simple. I like simple wrestling. I don't need it all kind of messed around. But this one it stood out. It was different. It was good, and I think keeping it that short pace as well. If we would have been sitting here giving it a different rating. If it did go for 16 minutes, I think it could have maybe flopped a little. But just out there, high impact moves, and then get it finished, I think served the purpose. So I'm going to say 2 stars for me.
Sounds fair indeed there. Well, I'll tell you what, we shall move on then to what was first of many of the backstage segments in this show. Obviously, Kurt Angle was the first one that was spoken to by Lillian Garcia. And I mean, Kurt said that everything he's done has never prepared him for a match like this, but he isn't sweating his opponents. He goes through some different body parts like the eyebrow and stuff for The Rock, for example. And he says Mick Foley made himself famous by being thrown off of the cell, but it's not going to happen to him. And of course, he has to have a dig at the crowd as well, calling everyone in Alabama hicks. Kurt Angle, for me, obviously, is a character, is one in generational.
Definitely, man. At this point when I was younger, I remember I hated Kurt Angle. Obviously, he was a heel, but I really, just couldn't stand him. Which, looking back, he's obviously done his job right. But I thought this little segment was hilarious. He's just doing squats. He's like, hey, why are you interrupting me? I'm trying to exercise. And it was pretty fun. And I think you said everything. Just Kurt Angle at this point is just cool, and he's just fun. And obviously he's a world champion, but he's a legit athlete, and also he's got this comedy side to him as well, which is, you don't really see both. It never really works when the Kurt Angle just got it. He just struck at the right time.
Absolutely, yeah. He was like a duck to water with WWE and how to use the character work as well as great in ring style as well. So, yeah, absolutely fantastic. And we move on to what would be our second match of the show for the European Championship. The one and only Mr. William Regal defending against hometown boy Hardcore Holly. Now, of course, William Regal had some advice, didn't he, before the match, which I thought was, again, hilarious. Having a bit of a dig at Alabama here. But he says, he gets to the mic and says, look, you're going to cheer your hometown hero in Hardcore Holly. That's a good thing. But myself, William Regal, I'm the one who cares. He offers some advice, maybe using a handkerchief. Could maybe stop making the crowd look so disgusting. Maybe washing overalls at least once a week could improve some hygiene. And it's okay to love animals, but not the way that they love animals. William Regal was on top form here, in my personal opinion. I found him absolutely hilarious. Man,
I don't like William Regal at all. I still to this day, I know he's a great wrestler. His in-ring work's fantastic. Yeah. I just can't get into him. I just doesn't mean. Plus, I think it's just when growing up as well, and it always refers to, obviously he's English, refers to England, and Scotland just gets left out because we're a lot different than what England's like. So I never related to him, and I just never got into him. And same as Hardcore Holly, never really got into them. So this match was kind of just there for me. I didn't really care about it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, for me, I think with William Regal, particularly like you say, obviously being English and that, but I just think the mannerisms, and when I watch him in the ring, like I didn't appreciate it as much at a younger age, but now when I'm older, I just see like a little swagger like that he might just do here and there, and I'm like, you just think to yourself, oh, it's just genius, William Regal. I don't know, he's always in character. I feel so perfectly for what he does with his roles, and here he's so happy the way he comes out, just like, I'm here to help you, but really I'm going to insult every single person in this place and get so much heat for it. And obviously not long in the future, he becomes the commissioner as well, and obviously he has a tea drunk differently to the rest of us, but that's probably for a different story for another day. Yeah, certainly going into this then with the match of Hardcore Holly. Again, it's a really short match. There's not really much you can stick your teeth into. Jerry Lawler continues to bash Alabama during the duration of the match as well. Obviously going with the animal joke as well, make Hardcore Holly squeal like a pig into submission at some point. But eventually, Hardcore Holly gets back into the match, gets the advantage. It uses like a forearm to knock William Regal down, and while the ref is checking on him, Raven appears from out of nowhere, hits the even flow DDT, and then Regal just makes a cover, and that's it. That's your 1, 2, 3. Signed, sealed, delivered, and it's all finished. William Regal retains the championship, and the match is 4 minutes and 59 seconds. So literally, again, not enough time really to sink your teeth too much into this one.
Definitely, I was happy it was short. I wasn't interested in watching this at all. It wasn't, like I said, he's so good in the ring. Like, I can look at it and appreciate him in the ring, but he's just not a person that I never sit down and watch a William Regal match. It's nothing. Same as Hardcore Holly. I never sit down and go, you know what, I'm really going to watch this Hardcore Holly match or this William Regal match. They are kind of just there. I get they're good in the ring, but I'm just no for me. This match as well just wasn't for me. It was cool seeing Raven, which was kind of random. I know there was like a story happening there, but it is still kind of random when Raven just pops out, and seeing him in WWE never seemed right because he was always like ECW, WCW, but just never seemed right when you see him in WWE.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Raven, Hardcore Holly, it goes up to the Hardcore division, seems to write Holly out of that. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But I promise, if there is ever a day that I do Hardcore Holly's greatest hits or William Regal, don't worry, I won't give you the call on that one. But, we'll see if it comes on. But if people want that video, not that I think many of them do, particularly for Hardcore Holly anyway, let me know. But yeah, we'll see how we go, what we can do for you. But we'll go back into the show then nonetheless. And just before I do, actually, the star rating, just to say, I mean, Big Dave gave it 1.25 stars. I think that's a bit generous, me personally. I'm going to give it a 1 star, mainly for William Regal, mainly for the fact that it turned up. But I mean, I could even give lower. There was nothing there for me, and I imagine here that we could be looking at a dud from the NWC. What do you reckon?
Duds, winter man. There was nothing here at all.
No.
How Meltzer gave this a 1.25 is, I don't know, but it was a dud. I don't get it. There was nothing here, nothing to really get into, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's not the worst match on the show, which is why I've gone with 1, but I do think I could have gone lower. I think I could have given it even 0.5 star. The in-ring work was okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just there's no story, there's nothing to grip my teeth into. I'm more invested in one of the superstars than you are. And obviously, at the same time, I just think that the finish, for me, when you are not watching everything building up and following on, now you look back at it, it doesn't sort of connect as much of why is Raven here? You have to go and look it up afterwards. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just one of those scenarios. But we'll move on in the meantime anyway. And obviously, as we say, we have a lot of these sort of backstage stuff going on here. And we get a video back to SmackDown before the show where we had a 3-man alliance with the heels of Triple H, Kurt Angle, and Rikishi. But of course, Kurt Angle breaks that by hitting Rikishi with the WWE Championship, or should I say World Wrestling Federation Championship at that time. Kevin Kelly is with Rikishi, asks if he's worried about Triple H then turning on him. And Rikishi says, whatever happens. He sacrificed his life for a chance to win the WWF Championship. He will sacrifice all 5 men this evening. Did its purpose, I think this was definitely one of the more, how can we put it, more, there was a reason for this question to be asked if you worried about Triple H turning. Some of the video, the interviews throughout the night didn't have as much meat on the bones, let's say, but Rikishi's one for me did stand out a bit better. What were your thoughts?
Man, it was a good kind of promo for it. I still, to this day, don't know why they put Rikishi in there. No. I have no idea why. And because his whole character was like the dancing kind of thing, like just before this, and then obviously I know the story leading up to it, but I still just don't get it. The promo was okay, wasn't it? It was probably one of the best promos that we see Rikishi do, like as that kind of bad kind of tweener heel person being like, I'm going to do this, and all the promos are good, like Triple H, Taker, the ones that come up later, they're all really good, but this one was just there for me. This whole part of the show after that tag match is kind of just like, they don't know, they're just kind of threw it together, really, it feels like.
Absolutely. And then speaking of that, let's go for the next match then, which I know Barry Stummy's really excited to talk about, is Chyna versus Val Venus with Ivory. Now, of course, for those that are unfamiliar with at this point, right to censor was a thing in WWE. So Val Venus was not the porn star. He was dressed up in his, sort of sleeveless shirt with a tie. Obviously, Ivory's in the full gimmick as well there, and obviously the rivalry is starting with Ivory and Chyna heading to WrestleMania 17. Of course, we see like the attack that's done from Val Venus on Chyna on a Raw build up to this that led to the match. Now, the match itself, again, it's the same old story in the undercard here. The match is very short. Again, 5 minutes, 2 seconds is all they are given. Not enough meat on the bone for my liking, but obviously Chyna does have that advantage early on. In fact, the match actually starts in the aisleway, but of course, Val does manage to get himself on top. Ivory actually then putting the boot to Chyna on the floor, but then Val misses his money shot, splash off the top rope. Chyna then obviously gets back into the match, but until Ivory pulls her leg when she's going to the ring ropes, chases Ivory, and then Chyna runs straight into a fisherman suplex, or as I like to call it, a perfect plex. I am a Kurt Hennig guy after all, and Val Venus does get the win. And of course, after the match, she's about to do a powerbomb before Val makes the save and hits a blue thunder bomb, which of course at that time was just a varied powerbomb. But hey, we're in the modern world. We've watched Sami Zayn since. I'm calling it a blue thunder bomb. What were your thoughts of this? I'm got a feeling it's not going to be positive.
I think it was kind of shite, wasn't it? I know you're trying to be PG, but poo. That's a PG word, isn't it?
I prefer shite, to be honest.
It wasn't that good, wasn't it? No, it was cool that they're starting the story for Ivory Chyna now to head to WrestleMania, like that long-term storytelling. But there was no point in this match really being here. I like the entrance. Chyna with the mad firework gun thing was cool, and right to censor when I was a kid. Just watching this stuff always brings back that nostalgia period, because I was like, 9 when this was on. Like, just I hated right to censor. It was as if like, why are you taking all the good stuff away from wrestling? And that's the whole point of it. But obviously Right to Censor won because that's what we've got now. But it was no, there was no need for this to be here. Once they could have extended. I would have rather seen Hardcore Holly Regal go longer than watch this one.
Yeah, fair play to you, fair play. I don't know. There's just something with Right to Censor. Like you say, they do their job well, really, because we have to hate them. That theme music is something that stays in your head afterwards, and for all the wrong reasons. It's not a good song. Chyna, like you say, she's built and looks like a star when she comes to the ring, and she's had some good matches as well. But on this night, just something was a bit off here. It was rushed. There was no time to deliver anything, and I just think for the purpose of the story, I mean, obviously there was mentions on commentary as well that there's Right to Censor not happy with the idea of Chyna doing Playboy, so I guess there is some links to why this storyline does make sense, but at the same time, this match just wasn't for me. I'm going to have to give this I think even like probably a quarter of a star. It just wasn't for me, this one. Big Dave gives this half a star, and I dread to think where you're going with this.
I'm going to say, I'll say nothing. That a dud. I'm not going to give it any minuses, but it shouldn't be on the. Even Chyna was on the outside, and then Ivory was like kicking her, and it looked terrible. I was like, what? What's going on? Like, why is nothing? Even Chyna didn't look like she really wanted to really be there to do this match, and Val Venus. But at this point, really wasn't the Val Venus that we remember with the towel and the hello ladies and the cool stuff. Just when you took all the character away from me, wasn't really anything. Just kind of a random person there. But this was a dud. I'd even go a -5. I mean, minus 0.5, because this was pointless of it being here. And then it heads into a really pointless segment, which I'm sure that you're going to go to.
How did you know I was going there next? I mean, to be fair, I think that's quite fair with a lot of the points you're making there on this one, if we're being brutally honest. But moving on then to where we go into the show next, and obviously we've got Stephanie backstage with Vince McMahon. She's scared for Triple H. She could barely walk after this match against one guy in Hell in a Cell, let alone 5. And of course, that was Cactus Jack earlier in the year in February. But they did say last year throughout the show on this. So I guess it is nearly 12 months. So I'll let them off. He's got 5 opponents, and Vince says that he will make a stop to this. That damn Foley. We also get Kevin Kelly as well. I'll do a couple of these together, and then we can sort of break down what we need to, because a lot of it is what it is. I think that we could both agree perhaps a lot of it's kind of filler. But Taker obviously has his visions earlier in the day, standing inside Hell in a Cell, and says that, what he's done to others, he's scared of the man he becomes in the cell. This match is to do one to others before they do one to you. And we see clips, of course, against HBK at Bad Blood 97, of course, as well with Mankind, King of the Ring 1998. And Taker says he likes that side of him. He made them famous, and who will be famous tonight. Before I go to, because Vince McMahon will come to ringside with the Stooges, I'll quickly get your take on those couple of segments. Obviously, what were your thoughts of Undertaker?
Taker's one was cool, wasn't it? Obviously, it was just him standing in there, like, talking about, obviously, the famous matches that we all love, and it was fun. That other thing about them saying that last year, that annoyed me as well. Like, I was like, it was only like 9 months ago or whatever. I would have been about 11 months ago at the time. It was like, it's not last year. Stop it. It was it was a gripe that I had throughout the day. But Taker had a cool segment. He always looked cool in the ring, didn't he? I wish he kept that dead man gimmick a little bit longer to be in this match with that, because I think it would have worked better than kind of that awkward biker with a long hair kind of period, which was weird. Before he went full American Badass, it was just kind of that weird kind of in-between period. Yeah,
absolutely. I was going to ask it later on, but I'll do it now. I mean, what were your thoughts? Obviously, he's got the Limp Bizkit rolling. For me, I was a big Limp Bizkit fan back in the day. I could do that rolling rap all day long. It was a lot of fun for me. Did you like it as Taker's theme tune?
I did, man. I've got a fun story about that. When I was 9 when this was on. So I don't know if you remember, libraries used to give you CDs. So like you'd have your like CDs to listen to music in a library.
Yeah.
And people, I remember one of my friends in school went into the library and he stole the Limp Bizkit CD, and we went up the house and we were listening to it and stuff like that. And obviously we were watching wrestling. And it was probably around about the same time this Hell in a Cell was on, because I remember having a VHS with it. But it was probably about the same time this was on, which is, I think everybody was into Limp Bizkit at that time, wasn't they? Though it kind of just, it was just everywhere at the weird time in history.
Well, they're the Mission Impossible theme tune, didn't they?
That was it.
For Mission Impossible 2, they had the Take a Look Around. Then they obviously had Rolling. It came out in December. I must admit, I purchased the album when we got to My Way, which came around WrestleMania time. Still one of my favorite songs of all time. Absolutely love that song. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those. It's one of my favorite CDs as well. And like you say, it was a fun time period. And I mean, to revolve it back into the Undertaker as well. There, obviously, this is one of the. We want to promote this as a dangerous match, hype up Hell in a Cell. We don't really get that. It's seen as a safer space in the modern day of wrestling. Would you agree? Here, Undertaker really gives you that reason to say we should be fearful that someone's going to get hurt tonight in Hell in a Cell. It's
literally the point of Hell in a Cell, isn't it? Like, it's what they do now with it. Like, we've got the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view this weekend. Like, who really cares for it? Do you know what I mean? It's just a load of shit. It's just a frigging red cage wrapped around it. There's no point in it being there. Like, you could have the same matches without it. But back when wrestling was better, we got to see Hell in a Cell, and you got like that dangerous aspect to it. You're like, shit, what's going to happen in this match? Like Foley going off the top, or Michaels being a bloody mess, and Kane coming out and pulling the door off. You're like, what's going to happen in this? Like, you've got the Triple H, Cactus Jack one as well. It was always like something big's going to happen, and then like now it's just kind of just a wrestling match where just a fancy cage running outside it.
Totally agree with you 100%. But do check out our predictions on our channels, though, by the way. We want everyone to go and check those out as well. But no, seriously, though, I totally agree. That definitely back then they promoted this a lot more dangerous. I wish they'd bring that element in today, because I do feel, but for example, Cody and Seth, I do feel actually that's for people that may be watching this 6 months down the line going, oh, okay, this is when they're recording it. I do think the matches were with Hell in a Cell, but at the same time, if they just put the fear factor around it of what the cell means, represents, some of the dangerous spots and things that happened in the match previously on the build up to this show, for me, I just think it just adds a different layer to what the cell match means and feels. And them going in, you've got that different buzz already, and all of a sudden the match feels just that bit more exciting, even though we know Cody and Seth are really good performers. But it's a little detail for me, and that's something that I would say that even though they spend a lot of the night focusing on these bits, I do like that they make the Hell in a Cell feel like it's the most important and dangerous thing in the world.
Definitely, man. I think it's something that's missing from wrestling across the board as well just now, how dangerous they make matches feel. Like, you'll just get a steel cage match that opens up a show. But I remember steel cage matches being like just this, like, when they're in a steel cage, it's like, it's going to be brutal. People are going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get, you have to try and like crawl to escape and all that kind of stuff. And then now it's just like, let's open up a random Raw with a steel cage or a random Dynamite. And it's belittles the idea of all these great matches that were in a Hell in a Cell or in a steel cage for all those years, even like a War Games. They don't make it seem like a poor, like so nothing's going to happen from it. Like you said, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins are fantastic performers, but they could have done more. They could have like been telling a story of, this is like the last bit of the feud. This is going to be the finish. They're moving on from it. Whoever leaves this is going to go on to be like the champion or something. Just tell a story. That's what was good about this pay-per-view. They told a story, even if it was just the one match pay-per-view, but they told a story, which is something that I miss a lot from wrestling.
Absolutely indeed. And to tell that next bit of the story, obviously, Vince McMahon is in there with the Stooges, Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe. He says there's no regrets from SmackDown, by the way, telling Linda he wants a divorce after 34 years. Charming husband of the year, isn't he? Vince said, though, he's a concerned humanitarian for all superstars in the Hell in a Cell match. He actually asked the fans to send a message to Mick Foley. You should not encourage or support the Hell in a Cell match. Fans, of course, boo it. And then he wants fans to stand in support. He's like, damn it, stand up when people aren't standing up. Very few people do, but hardly any do. He says, right, okay, well, tonight it's on Mick Foley. This Hell in a Cell match is going to happen, but it's also on the conscience of each and every one of you as well, which I thought was a fun little detail, even though perhaps there is a little argument that this could have perhaps dragged on a little bit too much. It
did drag on a little bit too much, didn't it? Like, you kind of went on like come on, wrap this up. But it was cool to see Vince out there. He's kind of doing his character and stuff like that. But I think the show, it didn't need to have this on there. We could have missed this. It could have been left off. It didn't need to be there. But it was a cool wee part of the show.
Yeah, it was a filler part, but obviously maybe have harmed some of the matches for short of length. I'd have preferred that maybe there was I've got an idea to stop this from happening later tonight, and you wait to the cell match and then go into what they do later. Which will, if you don't know what happens, we'll keep it safe for you. He does have a little role to play in the 6-man Hell in a Cell match. But if you do know, you already know what I'm talking about. But I'll tell you what we will do though. There was another match to go to next, and it is a last man standing match on this show. Chris Jericho versus Kane. And of course, there is a bit of story, a bit of meat to the bone on this one. Actually started with a bit of coffee being spilled on Kane, and Jericho saying, well, I hope you can get burnt. Yeah, you know where we're going with that. Kano says, the more you want to see him, the more I want to end him. We see a lot of attacks backstage with Jericho being thrown through a window and all different types of attacks as well. And obviously steel stairs, steel chairs, even Jericho using the chair as well on the big red machine. It felt like it was going to be a very violent match from that video package.
It did feel like it was going to be a very like violent and like just a match you could really get into. And then the match started.
It wasn't a bad match, but I totally agree with where you're going from, because you see all of that in the video package. And for those that are unaware, the match goes for about 17 minutes. In fact, I'll get the actual time up so people know how long this match was. 17 minutes and 16 seconds. For the first half of it, there's no weapons in sight, nothing. It's a pure regular match. Now, don't get me wrong, it starts the aisle way, it goes backstage, Mideon gets in the way, gets a couple of punches for his troubles. Good on Mideon, that's a pay-per-view paycheck for you. And then they find their way back to ringside. The fans cheer, obviously. And with the initial Kane doing some big attacks on Chris Jericho, the likes of a clothesline from the top rope and the chokeslam, and obviously each time the count is being done by the referee, gets closer to the 10 count. It was a 9 count on the chokeslam. Kane then brings a chair into the ring. Yes, violence, what we want. And of course, he goes to attempt to use a tombstone pile driver to Jericho on the chair. Jericho slides over the top, and the comeback is then on. Uses the chair, obviously, on Kane there to try and get the count from the referee. Doesn't get any to avail there. But then does a line sail onto the chair, onto Kane, which I'm pretty sure hurts Chris Jericho as well. Again, Kane does manage to wake his way back up. Also, I believe an 8 count, even though commentary says 9. The match then continues into an aisle. We then get Jericho reversing a chokeslam attempt when they're standing on, I don't know if it was like one of the cars or something, to go for a table. And then it was like a bulldog instead, but it was a very awkward table break. It wasn't like your usual clean, crisp in the middle. It kind of just fell flat, the table. So it didn't kind of work the same way. But then as Kane looked like he was going to be getting back up, Chris Jericho looked at the aisle, looked at the staging. There was loads of barrels that were kind of piled on top of each other, and thought, do you know what's a good idea? I'm going to bury Kane. And he just pushed it on top. Kane is buried under that. The arm comes out of the 9 count, but then Chris Jericho just kicks it back down and gets the victory for the 10 count. For me, I like the finish. I think the finish is creative. I do think that this match should have been more violent than what it was. And I think that maybe, I'm going to say, it was a bit clunky in places, but both are good performers. But maybe this was just a little bit of an off night to what this could have been.
The best thing was the match ending. This just wasn't for me at all. It was, like you said, it was clunky. You can get 2 good workers, but they might not work together well. And that's Kane and Chris Jericho. For me, they've never really had like that fantastic match in the ring. Like, it's never been great. Plus, Jericho, I'm sure he had a last man standing match with Triple H like a few months before this. So it's kind of weird that he's having another one with Kane, because he spilt coffee on him and says, "Watch, don't burn yourself," which was weird. But no, this wasn't. I don't know. I don't know how they dragged this out for 17 minutes. A good effort on that part. But this wasn't really. No, the violence should have been bigger in this one too. I think obviously they were saving it for the main event, but they should have done more stuff in this. Like, it was just, like you said, they go to the back, come back out, there's a chair. You're kind of like, this is kind of shite. As it gets dragging on, when's it going to finish? What's going to happen? I get what you're saying, you like the finish, but I think it was just, you could tell. I like when stuff looks real, right? So you can tell the barrels just like were lying there, and it was like poor, like just stop it, just leave it, don't put this on, finish it. Like it didn't even make sense. Like, Kane would have made more sense winning this, but That's me had my wee rant for this one. It wasn't for me.
No, I think that's fair. I think actually, for me personally, I think the video package harmed this match, and I do think that you could have turned around and said that I think the story for me was fine in the match, but as it kind of hyped up that it was going to be more violent, that's what let it down. And then being a 17-minute match, which I think may have done it a favor to have been a 12-minute match, for example, shaved off a little bit of time from it, I think then my rating would have been higher for it. But speaking of ratings, then I think the magic moment's come for you, Barry, to give your rating for Chris Jericho versus Kane, a last man standing match.
1.5 stars, just because there was a few moments in it. It was like, that's pretty cool. Apart from that, it was terrible. I know that's pretty harsh, but 1.5.
I don't think it's too harsh, to be fair. Big Dave gave it a 2-star, and I'm going to go and agree with him. I don't always agree with Dave with a lot of star ratings, but I am going to here because of the fact that I didn't mind the story of the match. I just think that it could have delivered better. And I think if it had delivered better, we could have been looking at maybe a 3-star match. But unfortunately, we're looking at a 2-star match. So I think that's what we're going to give it here. But anything you'd like to say before we move on?
No, just don't ever go watch that match because it doesn't serve any purpose. 17 minutes wasted.
Or skip the video package. That way you don't know what you're walking into. That could be another thing.
It felt like a SmackDown match. There's a match between Jericho and Kane on SmackDown that they go to the back, that kind of stuff. And it felt like that was better than this. I can't remember what SmackDown it was on, but that was better than this. It just felt like a random TV show match, not an actual pay-per-view match.
Oh, fair play. Well, if we can find that SmackDown, then definitely we can give that a recommendation instead then. But the coach is backstage with Mick Foley after this, and he is saying, after the brutal match that we've just seen, does Mick Foley have second thoughts? Foley says, well, I admit to having second, third, and fourth thoughts about the main event, but Foley said that if Vince McMahon is wrong, and Foley will be relieved and happy when it's over with. We get HBK as well in WWE New York Times Square. Oh, I remember that. There was some nostalgia with that. Shares his experience of Bad Bud 97, which I thought was served the purpose again. But again, it's a lot of filler in between matches. And we see clips throughout the night as well. This time we got clips of King of the Ring 98. We saw numerous clips as well from No Way Out. Also with Cactus Jack and Triple H earlier in the year. So what were your thoughts with these couple of segments?
I thought they were good, man. I always loved that the WWE, WWF New York kind of little place that they had there. I always thought that was good. I wish they still had something like that today. Yeah. I would go watch the pay-per-views, and I would rather fly to there to watch the pay-per-views because then at least I can not have to moan about it in the arena. But I think it would be. I think it was cool. Again, it was this point we're just I'm just biting my nails and waiting for that Hell in a Cell to start. I want it to start, and all the matches this pay-per-view serve a purpose as well. They might not be the best, but the build up to it is kind of slowly building you to we got to drag you through all these matches to get to the main kind of pay-per-view, the main match that you want to see. So none of them are really great, but it drags you all the way through it because you just want to see the finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but the thing is, like you said, there is hype going throughout the evening that gives you a need to know how this is going to turn out. You couldn't turn off now halfway through, but I would agree that the last couple of matches haven't delivered as well as they could, but I start to feel there's a slight turning point that comes now with the next match. I actually quite enjoyed this next one. Is the Four Corners Tag Team Championship match. We've got Right to Censor, which of course, easy for me to say. Paul Buchanan with the Good Father going against the Dudley Boys, going against Edge and Christian, going against Road Dogg and K-Kwik, of course, formerly known as R-Truth nowadays, with their rap coming to the ring. Do you prefer that rap or do you prefer What's Up?
I don't know, man. I think both of them serve a purpose, and I think the rap, maybe. I would go for the rap. K-Kwik is such a weird name because how we Ron Killings and then R-Truth and stuff like that as well. But it's just such a weird name, and it's a weird pairing. Road Dogg and K-Kwik is a tag team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too long. It was quite short-lived, but we did get to see it in this match, which I think is it's a little hidden gem with the pay-per-view. Just knowing that R-Truth has been wrestling for that long, you sometimes can forget it because I mean, the guy, he still looks like young and he can go no problem with a lot of the roster today. You would easily not be confused. It's like the man doesn't age. But a little bit of a video package as well. We didn't get a lot of meat on the bone for this one, but the Dudley boys look like they are going to join Right to Censor. They're dressed up in the shirts and the ties on the SmackDown, and they said about putting people through tables is wrong. But then they said, but if they're doing that is wrong, Bubba says, I don't want to be right. And obviously that's when the beatdown's done on Right to Censor. And we see as well Steve White Sox Richards, I could say, being put through a table on SmackDown. Of course, he's still selling the effects coming down ringside of the match. But just give the bit of the details of the match, because I do think it was a slow start, this match, but it definitely got a very fast-paced finish. K-Kwik getting a lot of the beating earlier on. But there was one little spot before that I enjoyed. Bubba and Road Dogg doing the Road Dogg punches together with a little jig. And then when they sort of looked at each other as they were doing it in sync at the same time, they punched each other and knocked to the ground. I thought that was quite a fun little spot. But like I say, K-Kwik took a lot of the offense from the heels of this match. He looked like he was going to get to the apron at the time, away from Edge, but Christian pulled Road Dogg off. The beauty of a four corners tag team match, though, is you can tag somebody else in. So he tagged in Bubba Ray Dudley, and from that point, that's when chaos did literally take off. I mean, I suppose to put it in Anarchy in the ring, Anarchy in the arena, shit hit the fan from this point onwards. We saw Road Dogg and K-Kwik taken out first. K-Kwik went flying over the top rope, but was actually caught and landed into a shoulder breaker from the Good Father on the floor. Road Dogg was then super kicked by Stevie Richards, so he was able to still do that despite being hurt. We see then 3Ds done to the Right to Censor members in the middle of the ring, and also being hit with a table in a clothesline style fashion also. Doomsday being hit on Edge, and What's Up's being done to both Edge and Christian. Devon goes outside to get the table, but then it's DDT by Stevie Richards, taking them both out the match. As Bubba turns in the ring, he turns into a spear for a very good close 2 count fall from the referee. Edge then actually has the ref distracted. Christian nails the Unprettier. Edge then gets the pinfall, and we have brand new tag team champions at that time, the 4-time tag team champions of Edge and Christian. For me, as I say, fairly slow start, but when this really kicked into gear with the hot tag, I really got into it. I thought it was a lot of fun.
The start was pretty hard to get into. And again, it's another shorter match. Like, it was only like 9 minutes, I think it was, or just over 9 minutes. But
I'll confirm that.
I think it was.
Yes, it was 9:42.
Look at me remembering stuff in that. as if I know what I'm talking about. It was, the end was cool, and I also forgot how over the Dudley boys were. I forgot how, getting the tables out, doing the waza, going up on top of the rope, putting people through tables and stuff. I forgot how over that was, and it was such a cool wee match. I really enjoyed this one. It was a breath of fresh air compared to the past few ones that we've had, and this was ironically more violent than the Last Man Standing match, but it was a fun match. I think what you said about R-Truth, Ron Killings, whatever you want to call him. He's been in wrestling for so long, isn't he? Like, and like you said, he can still go and looks the same age as what he does here. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. And Right to Censor was there, and we all hate that theme song, but I liked this match. I really did. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool match as well. What would be your star rating for this one?
I'm going to be generous and say a 2.5 because I really got into it. I was enjoying it. I was waiting for the tables to come out. Edge and Christian are always great to watch, so I was happy to see it as well.
Absolutely. Well, Dave Meltzer gave it a 2.5 star. I'm actually going to go slightly higher and give it a 3 because I really enjoyed it once it got into gear. I do think perhaps it's slightly generous, maybe in a way, but I just thought for me, from everything I'd seen up to this point, I really enjoyed that 5-minute spell with these guys in the ring. For me, I was like, yeah, I'm back in, I'm hyped, I'm ready for what's coming up next. So for me, the way that it made me feel watching the show, I think it deserves that slightly generous push. So I'm going to go a little bit higher and give it the 3-star rating. Of course, you can never go wrong as well when E&C become your tag team champions, in my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. Shall we move on to the next segment of the show?
Yeah, of course. That's what we're here for. One thing I do want to say is R-Truth, this was if people haven't seen him back then, is go watch him and then go watch him in TNA, because you see the build-up of him becoming from getting into WWE, then going and being the NWA champion. You kind of start to see the build from kind of this point, so go check that out, because it's a really cool journey as well, because he does a lot of independence and he goes to the NWA, TNA weekly kind of pay-per-views, then he gets the belt, which is pretty cool. A cool story for R-Truth to tell.
Absolutely. In fact, he was in The Wrestler as well. The move with Mickey Rourke, wasn't he? Also,
Yeah.
with a little cameo there. So yeah, he has got a fantastic journey throughout his career, R-Truth. And I would actually would agree with that sentiment to go out your way to watch some of the stuff that he's done with his journey throughout his career. But we spoke about Husbands of the Year earlier on. Triple H being the next one of it, saying that to his wife Stephanie that the most important thing in his life is the WWE Championship. So despite everything that the guy has gone through, he will do anything it takes to win that championship. For me, it was short enough. This, it wasn't so much filler, and yeah, I mean, obviously Stephanie kind of like just sort of like, yeah, I understand, but do you love me? Your thoughts?
Man, it was straight to the point, wasn't it? And I mean, I would do anything to get a belt that looked as cool as that back in WWE. Just something that looked like an actual, championship belt instead of from what we've got just now in WWE, especially. But it was straight to the point, easy, nothing, no frills or nothing, just straight to the point. Plus, it puts that Hell in a Cell as like this is like the match that everybody has to see, and just I think this is the pay-per-view that was WWE's best-selling December pay-per-view.
Oh, really?
I think it's up to this point or until like 2008 or something like that. They normally do terrible pay-per-view buys, but I'm sure this is one of their better ones. I'm sure it bought was like 500,000 or something like that. Or I've just totally made that up and confusing it with something else. But I'm sure I read that somewhere.
Yeah. No, it was 465,000, which I think, like you say, probably is very good for a December show. A lot of the ones we've done cover like 200,000 or 100,000 and something. So depending on what the company is. So I mean, a lot of the time, like you say, this was good for this time period. And obviously the next match that all those people were checking out was the Intercontinental Championship. And it wasn't Mr. Arse, not an arse boy. It was the one Billy Gunn defending against Chris Benoit. For me, the one Billy Gunn has to be probably my least favorite Billy Gunn. And I was a big Billy Gunn fan, especially the early portion of his career. But this gimmick never worked for me.
No, when I kind of Billy Gunn became like one of my favourite wrestlers was the 1999 King of the Ring. You have heard me talk about this thousands of times. I love that pay-per-view. It's such a cool pay-per-view. And then I was like, I got it on VHS and was like, that's my guy, because he just seemed so cool. And he overcame like Kane and all that kind of stuff as well. But then the one Billy Gunn was just a terrible. Like, why did they have to change it? It was working. That still worked. Only like a year before, year and a half prior to that, he was called Mr. Ass Billy Gunn, and then they've somehow changed it to the one. Never worked with me, never sat with me at all.
No, same here on that one. And obviously, as we go into the match, obviously Billy Gunn had surgery on a rotator cuff. I hope I've got that right. But Benoit was targeting Billy's leg throughout the match, including a figure four leg lock. We see a tenacious Benoit trying to get the crossface on at one point, really sort of forcing it on there, but Billy Gunn does manage to get his foot on the rope. As Gunn looks to get offense, though, back on Benoit, his leg gives way. It looks like a botch at the time, really, but the commentary does cover it really, really well. And then Billy does get caught into the equipped crossface and does tap out. We've got a brand new Intercontinental Champion in Chris Benoit. Short and sweet on the notes. I thought the match was all right at best. For me, I thought Benoit had a stellar performance.
The two of them didn't work well together at all. I felt like an off night, like for Billy Gunn just didn't seem there. Like he really just didn't seem like he wanted to be there. Benoit was obviously the person in control of the match here. He looked cool, and it's like, I don't know. For here, I was just kind of like, this match didn't really serve a purpose, didn't it? No, it was just, it was so awkward to watch because Benoit was so good, and Billy Gunn was kind of, I know his character was really good and he was really over, but he just wasn't. He's not on the same level as like a Benoit, because Benoit was just controlling this match, and like I said, there was a few botches in here and that in it. But for me, Billy Gunn just didn't. The two of them didn't work well, and again, it's that kind of Kane Chris Jericho situation. These guys are over. They might not work well together in the ring. Like you could just separate them apart a wee bit. You don't need to put them together. But it was what it was. I didn't really enjoy this one.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. I mean, for me, as I say, I thought Benoit had a good performance. I thought the match was okay, but as you can see, there's not as much detail given for this one. I don't think there was so much that needed to be said, really. But going into it, it was a 10-minute match, 3 seconds. Meltzer's give it a 2-star rating. I'm going to go 1.5. I'm going lower than Dave on this one. I thought that it was, like I said, I enjoyed Benoit, but like you said, something didn't quite click the same as what it could have done, or perhaps what it should have done.
I'm going to go for a 1.5. The good thing is Benoit winning this sets up for that amazing ladder match at the Royal Rumble 2001 with Chris Jericho and Benoit. So him winning sets up for that. That's why I'm giving it a 1.5. Otherwise, I would have just gave it 1. So the setup that it leads to gets it an extra 0.5. So 1.5.
I think that's a good shout indeed, especially like you say, what it goes on to next. It was the right move, definitely, to change that championship over to Benoit at that particular point. But obviously, we have Jim Ross with Steve Austin earlier in the day. Jim Ross saying that he was a bit sort of nervous for everyone in the match. He got up at like 4 a.m. or something like this. But Steve Austin said, well, good for you. I haven't slept at all. I've been drinking coffee all day. He said that the idea of Triple H and Rikishi being in the match after everything he'd gone through, of course, Austin being run over by Rikishi, and obviously Triple H obviously was involved with that also. But he said that actually motivates him, but he can't focus too much on them and getting the revenge. He just needs to win. What were your thoughts with this? I thought this was all right again.
I like the Austin, that kind of always enjoy Austin. Bald men need to stick together. But he's always enjoyable to watch. And I like the story that they're telling here. That's what I was meaning with that Hell in a Cell. Every single wee segment from the guys that are going to be in it is just getting better. They're putting it in, like, literally making it seem like this. I'm going in and ending my career in here. Like, I remember watching it at this point and being like, is somebody going to, like, if like an Austin came off the top of the cell, how's he going to come back from something like that? Like, it got you as a fan to be set like, this is like a match that means something. It was like it felt like a match that was really going to be, and like just an insane. It meant something that I don't know how else to explain it. And every one of these wee segments are just kind of like puzzle pieces to it as well, which is fun. It is good. You have to check out all the segments before you get to the Hell in a Cell, because it really adds to the storytelling to it.
There's a lot more drama going in from the way that they hype this up throughout the show. It really does feel that so important. But something that unfortunately doesn't feel important, and in my opinion was a complete slap in the face, is the next match, because I was actually really looking forward to this when I saw it was on the show. Because I was like, oh, I don't remember this match. There's a reason I don't remember this match. It was 2 minutes and 12 seconds. What a slap in the face. I mean, that's not including entrances, thankfully, because otherwise it would be about 10 seconds. But, Molly Holly, accomplished wrestler. Trish Stratus goes on to be one of the best of all time. Ivory, we know she's creditable in the ring with stuff she does. Maybe not always her best matches when she's dressed in the right Censor gear. I imagine that's probably a bit of distraction, probably, dressed in the long skirt. But still, nonetheless, these three in the ring could have put on a good match. Instead, 2 minutes and 12 seconds, a slap in the face. And just to make it even worse, the finish of this match, Molly Holly does like a sit-down powerbomb, which looked an impressive-looking spot. Just about for myself, I'm going to start to get into this now. Ivory just attacks Molly from behind, throws her out the ring, gets the pinfall, 1, 2, 3. That's it, all done. And just to make it even more to feel like it's an afterthought, after this match, obviously Trish is involved with TNA at that point, Test and Albert. They come to ringside and they look like they're going to put an attack on Molly Holly. And then from that point, Crash Holly comes out to make the save, challenges Test and Albert to come into the ring. And of course, they were dressed as well, Test and Albert, in like TAPA t-shirts, because they'd taken over the Alkali Protection Agency. We get the return of Farouk and Bradshaw, the APA, and obviously we see like a mega spine buster on Test, and then a brutal clothesline from Hell. It just was an angle to set up the return for the APA, a complete slap in the face to women's wrestling. And I don't know, maybe I'm being a bit too over the top on it, but because we know how women's wrestling was booked back in the day. But I just felt like this could have been given a bit more time, especially when we had to sit through some of the matches we said we didn't like.
When I was the exact same as you when I saw this one coming up. I was like, I don't remember this. I don't remember this being this high up the card or being on the card. Like, I don't remember it at all. So I was sitting, we were like a minute in. I was like, okay, so typical women's match for that period. It's not going to be anything amazing, but I was thinking there was going to be at least a 7-minute, 8-minute match where it was finished and just for APA to come out. But I always love seeing Farouk and Bradshaw. They're cool as shit, and they're always just the way that I love watching their matches, because they just beat the shit out of whoever in the ring with, and I think it's just cool. But this match was just, it was just embarrassing to be like, this is what it used to be. And it was weird as well because this is a women's championship match, but Lita was put over more than what these women were. Like, it didn't make, like, Lita was put over by Dean Malenko, making her look amazing compared to this. And it was just a weird time for women's wrestling. Thankfully, obviously, it's turned around now and women's wrestling's good. Like, well, depends how they book it, but women's wrestling is better than what it was. But this was a really awkward 2 minutes to sit through just for APA to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, like you say, on different circumstances, even if they want to do that after we had an 8-minute match, I think I'd be more accepting of it. But it just felt like it was just, let's get this out of the way to then get this moment. Do you know what I mean? I think for me, that was really disappointing because, I mean, again, watching WCW at the moment, I didn't realize Molly Holly was in WCW, by the way, as Mona, Miss Madness. And you could just see the stuff she's doing. She's a great in-ring wrestler, Molly Holly. And the fact she just didn't get the chance to show it here. And obviously, like I said, what we know Trish Stratus becomes, what Ivory was at the time, you know, you just think to yourself, like you say, there is a saving grace that Lita had a bit of a moment earlier in the night. Chyna had a match earlier in the night. So it's not as if women aren't featured at all, but obviously it's just seen as it's not important to the level what the men are doing. But hey, like you said, at least it's better now. That's something we can give it nonetheless. But 2 minutes and 12 seconds, it's hard to give much of a rating for this. Dave Meltzer gives it half a star. What are your thoughts?
I shouldn't even give a star for this. It doesn't. It's just an angle. There's no point in giving it a star. So I'm just going to say a dud again.
I have to understand where you're going with that. And to be fair, it's not of the fault of the women. It's the fault of the booking and the creative. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, they've turned up to work, and I was actually probably generous on one of the other matches earlier. So I will give it half a star. I still think that Chyna and Val Venus was worse, but I just think it's the idea of, yeah, it is what it is. There's not much more I can give to it. But we'll move swiftly on in the meantime anyway. And obviously, after this, we've got Kevin Kelly with The Rock. Obviously, The Rock being as charismatic as ever. Obviously, I'm not going to say as charismatic as he can, as wish I could. But he says that he's not sure who will be famous and if careers will end, but 3 things will happen. The Rock will bleed, sweat, and win the WWF Championship. And of course, his stuff on Raw prior to that is obviously the famous promo that you see pop up on social media from time to time where, you know, he's digging out every single wrestler and being very comical of all of them. You know, the special one with the Steve Austin, you know, where he's like, going to drink some Steve Weissers, have us listen to some Backstreet Boys, you know, that sort of stuff there. So, I mean, that stuff was really, really cool. But yeah, that was on the Raw before this. But what were your thoughts of Brock?
Just need to say, Steve, that was a fantastic American accent you just done there. It was a cool segment, and funny as I watched. So my kids have been watching the Mummy, the old, like the Mummy Returns and the movies. So we were watching the Mummy Returns last night, and because I know I was doing this today, I went and watched Scorpion King as well. Nice. The Rock is terrible at acting, and like really at that time he was really bad. So I couldn't take this seriously, but. It was a cool segment, but don't watch the Mummy Returns or Scorpion King before you watch this because you won't be able to look at The Rock right.
What about the Tooth Fairy?
I've not seen that one. I'm going through the Rock movies now with my kids. They want to watch like wrestlers that are in movies. They like the Hulk Hogan stuff. We're watching a Vin Diesel one because they say they look like The Rock. I don't know how they got to look like The Rock, but I think it's bald people just look the same. But so I'm going through them, but just don't watch Mummy Returns or Scorpion King before you watch any of the Rock stuff from this period because it ruins it for you.
There you go. You've been warned, all right? Anyone that's watching this, you have been warned. But we are going to warn you now because if you've been waiting for it, you're here and you're at the right time for it. It is main event time. That's right. We're going to talk about the 6-man Armageddon Hell in a Cell match for the WWE Championship. Of course, Kurt Angle is your champion going against Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Triple H, The Undertaker, and Rikishi. We're going to go through a lot of the details of this match. But first off, let's talk about what got us here because obviously so much carnage had been caused in WWE at the time. Pretty much control couldn't be kept anymore. The hit and run attack on Stone Cold Steve Austin. The car that was flipped off a forklift at Survivor Series, which is still one of my least favorite things in wrestling to this day with Austin and Triple H, because how would the Triple H able to compete a month later? It doesn't make any sense. He wouldn't be alive. Kurt Angle being chokeslammed off the stage through a table. And Commissioner Foley says, look, we've got to make the match. We're going to put all of you, and it's going to be inside Hell in a Cell. Vince McMahon returning, saying that Foley's twisted, making this match. Vince tries to talk everybody out of the match, protecting his investments, because that's what he really cares about. It was $1 billion worth of talent in the ring at that time. But Austin hits the stunner on McMahon, rock bottom from The Rock, and of course the last drive from The Undertaker. All clearly want to be a part of this Hell in a Cell match. It has gone to that level. Careers will be made, and maybe careers will be ended is the catchphrase that is given there for you. And what were your thoughts on this video package? I thought it was solid.
It was brilliant, man. Everything for this match was brilliant. This match puts me in mind of the 2002 Elimination Chamber, the first one. Like, everything they done for it was just, like, really, you can tell that they put so much time and effort into this and that as well. But this was just, the video package, the build up for it was just perfect.
It certainly was. You know, you bring up a fantastic point, which makes me want to ask a question right now. We've never had a 6-man Armageddon Hell in a Cell match since. Do you think it's because we've got the Elimination Chamber with the 6 people why we've never had it again since?
More than likely it is, but I think if you put 6 people in the ring today, it's going to be terrible. If you put them in the ring in today's Hell in a Cell, that big stupid looking red, like, it looks like a crate turned upside down on top of it in the ring, it's just going to be terrible, isn't it? Like, it's not going to work. So the Hell in a Cell's there. We let WWE try and get away with doing that, which isn't even that good. Don't give them ideas with putting 6 people in the ring just to make it they'll probably put 6 people in a Hell in a Cell and do an elimination over the top rope match, which would ruin my fandom even more. But I don't think we'll ever get something like that again. But like you said, I think the Elimination Chamber did replace that kind of style of it. Plus, as well, you don't want to keep having a Hell in a Cell match and put 6 of your top talent in it on there at the same time, messing up. Somebody falls. Like, we'll talk about what happens later on this.
Absolutely, yeah. There's absolute carnage in this match from the start. So, Barry, I'm going to go through the match because, and obviously, I've got a fair few notes, I have to say, for this one, because for those wondering before we go in, the match length of this is 32 minutes and 14 seconds. So, strap yourselves in, everyone. Here comes the notes, here comes the detail for you, because this match was a barn burner from the off, because everyone comes to the ring, goes inside the cell, apart from Kurt Angle, who's sort of hanging around by the side. The last one to come out is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Of course, he looks like he's going to go into the cell. Doesn't he? Goes straight for Kurt Angle, starts attacking him, throwing him inside the cell to get the match kicked off. We go on for about 5 or 10 minutes of everyone doing their stuff, being paired off and going outside the ring, couple inside the ring at a time. But then we get like where a lot of the finishing moves are hit quite early into the match, a really exciting period. Triple H hits his pedigree on Rikishi for The Rock then to make the save on the pinfall. Kurt Angle then hitting the angle slam on The Rock. We then get Stone Cold Steve Austin hitting a stunner, Stone Cold stunner on Kurt Angle. Taker goes and makes the save, chokeslams Austin, then Triple H makes the save. I thought this was a really fun sequence of all these people put together. In fact, you know, I'm going to break up in parts actually, because I think it's easier to do that. I think it's good to get our viewpoint as we go through the match. So Barry, what were your thoughts when you saw all this part take together? Because for me, I thought it was a lot of fun, all those finishes in one go. It felt almost like watching a WWE SmackDown versus Raw video game.
It did, man. It honestly felt like you were playing a video game, didn't it? It felt like, well, I was a 9-year-old at the time, so it felt like I was playing with my action figures. Like, it felt like I was playing with my wrestling figures. Yeah. Just like the way you would imagine it. And like, just as a kid, I was eating this up, and I was just amazing to watch. It was just, everything was happening, and there was no slow build. There was no like, let's just do like a wee slow build to it. It was just full. We're going right into it, which was brilliant. Absolutely, it's all killer, no filler. I think that's the best way. We're not even 10 minutes into the match at this point when all this has gone down. So I think that's what adds the drama and the excitement to it. Because, well, we already had this. Where's it going to go next? Well, I can tell you where it's going to go next, because we get an appearance from Vince McMahon and his stooges coming to the ring with a truck being reversed in, along with a construction crew. The truck rips off the door of the Hell in a Cell, and Vince says he plans to take the whole damn thing down. But before he can do that, Mick Foley's music hits. He comes down.
He hits Patterson and Briscoe, and then security takes Vince McMahon away with him screaming, "I own this damn place." I thought this was very entertaining, very fun. A bit of comic relief as well, because we say all these superstars are taking all these big moves. They need a few minutes to recover. For me, it obviously played into the narrative of the night as well. Vince McMahon still not giving up, wanting to find a way to get this sell away to protect his investment. And when I say his investment, the talent in the ring, not because he cares about the superstars, but because he cares about the money.
Man, it's a storytelling into it. That's what makes wrestling good. Like watching a good movie, it's a story they're telling you. They're getting you to buy in. It's like, what's Vince going to do? He's bringing a truck out. Like Mick Foley's out there. You're just, if you're in the audience, you're watching what Austin, Rock, Taker, Angle, Triple H on the ring. Mick Foley's came out. Vince McMahon's came out. He's brought a truck out with him. There's got. You're like, what's going? You'd be like, what the hell, man? Where am I meant to look? Which is just, it sums up that period in wrestling so well, didn't it? It was like, you don't know what's going to happen. Just anything can happen. Like, and it was such a fun start to the match, and we're still so early in it as well.
That's the thing. But the question is that I would say Vince McMahon wants to rip the whole thing down. He only gets part way. Now, surely he's made things worse, because now the door is open. There's no door. Everybody starts to come out, obviously. So, I mean, obviously we get the likes here of, Steve Austin and Triple H being the first two there. Steve Austin throwing Triple H head first into the car, then taking the hard camera that's sort of connected through and hitting him with that. We see Triple H bleeding, and then obviously Austin not long afterwards thrown through the window of a truck. This could have all been avoided if Vince McMahon had not come out.
Well, I think it was just that kind of, your boss thinks they know better, and then they mess up. That was that whole Vince McMahon heel kind of thing. Was like he says something and then he messes it up or stuff like that. And I love the Vince McMahon character. At this point, he still plays that same character today, but obviously it's a more watered down because he's like in his hundreds or something like that. But it was just so good. Like, it was just everything in this match sums up. Like, if somebody has to go, what's the attitude era? Go watch this match. Yeah. And it sums it all up. Like, what's going on? Like, and as well, at some points in this, it doesn't even feel like a Hell in a Cell. It feels like a street fight. Like, you forget there's a cell there, because they're like, when the door comes off, they all just start to get out and go kind of head up the rampway, and then you forget the cell's even there.
It's so true. It's so true. So true, everything you're saying there. And I mean, like you say, also, with everyone now coming out at this point, everyone's been thrown into cars and that. Obviously, The Rock's pedigreed on top of one. Obviously, we get to where Taker and Kurt Angle are back at ringside. One of my favorite moments of the match, because Kurt Angle actually hits The Undertaker hard style with a steel chair. And then Jerry the King Lawler immediately on commentary goes, "Angle, are you all right?" Like, he's just immediate panic, but actually Taker's the one that's taken the hit. I thought that was absolute genius.
I mean, it was. I think the commentary in this all the way through it was great as well. Like, they literally called everything, told a story, got you to buy in. They sounded like they were just as confused about what was going on as well as what we were as watching it. So it was fun. And again, we're still early in this match, which is insane.
Absolutely. The Demolition Derby continues, ladies and gents, because I can tell you from this point, this is where Triple H is trying to escape Austin. He actually climbs up to the top of the cell. Steve Austin goes to meet him up there. They obviously start punching on the top there. The fans are going absolutely wild. Then we get 4 people up there, because Kurt Angle goes up there, and so does The Undertaker quickly to join. I think this is a point where Triple H kind of goes, maybe this isn't a good idea. I need to get away from Austin, and I've got other people up here. We know what happens when Taker's up here. He manages to escape and get down the side. Austin follows him down there. And from this point, we then see The Undertaker threatening the timekeeper to throw him a chair. It takes a couple of attempts, but the timekeeper gets up there to a big brawl from the crowd, and he hits Angle with a proper chair shot to the head. It's proper nasty, but it's proper sweet as well, because Kurt Angle just kind of falls like, boom. He's just absolutely down. He's perfectly landed on the cell there, isn't he?
When it was the chair getting through up, and obviously it was missing, taking a couple of times. Crowds, they were into it anyway. People were just eating it up, and then that chair shot to Angle was just nice, wasn't it? It looked good, and then you're watching it like, this is what wrestling was like. How can this be 22 years ago? 22 years ago, wasn't it? Well, 22 years ago this year. How can that be that long ago, and still we're sitting here talking about it in sitting with a smile on their face, enjoying it better than quite a lot of today's product.
Yeah, absolutely indeed there, my friend. And obviously, whilst that's going on, the camera does cut away and you think to yourself, someone else is going to come up this cell. And that person happens to be Rikishi. The Rock looks like he's trying to at first, but he's kicked away by Rikishi. Rikishi comes up, gets that steel chair. He's attacking both men with the chair. And there is a point where Kurt Angle then sort of manages to escape himself and get down. And it's left then with just the two on the top. We've got Undertaker and Rikishi going head-to-head at it. And of course, well, there's only one outcome when two people are on the top of the cell. We've been teased what happened to Mick Foley when he got thrown off of it. Rikishi is punched towards the end. His hand is put around Rikishi's throat. We see the truck there and Undertaker. It's meant to be like a choke slam, but more kind of just pushes him off the top. And probably a safer thing to do, to be fair. We're not condoning anything different. And Rikishi just lands boom into the back of that truck. So the place just going absolutely wild. And of course, with the sort of like all the leaves and stuff clearly covering over what's probably some sort of cushion to protect him, that just going everywhere as well, just for more dramatic effect. And just seeing the camera work as well of Austin and The Rock just looking, going, oh my God, that happened just now. Like, and obviously there's that thing of like, that happened in this match, but also like, thank goodness that didn't happen to me. Especially you can see, I think Austin's face is there as well, because I was up there 2 seconds ago. Do you know what I mean? So for me, one of the big spots of the match, obviously the crowd goes absolutely mental for it. Definitely renowned as one of the big highlights of Hell in a Cell in history. What were your thoughts of that spot when Rikishi's thrown off the top of the cage?
How Rikishi at his size climbed up there is, at my size, I would be scared to climb up like the side of the cell. So I don't know how he managed to do that. And that chokeslam, which was just like the push, was terrible, but it's still like, it just adds on to it, like working with it. You couldn't get him up right. So he was not going to jump off there because size him anyway. And falling in, and even like, we had the thing in AEW when Chris Jericho came off the top, you could really tell he went into like tons of mats and stuff like that. Like, obviously the mats are hidden in like this truck, but the story of why the truck is out there for him to fall on it all makes sense. Like, you know, there's a mat in there for safety for him to fall on it and stuff like that, but it makes sense. You're not thinking about it at that point, like, oh, he's got a mat and stuff like that there. But like, it's just, again, it's that, where's this story part of wrestling went? Like, it's, we're losing this part to do some more flips in the ring, which is something that people are forgetting. That this makes sense as well. Rikishi going off the top is just insane, and I think that with him like kind of half falling down, you picture his ass when he's halfway down, is probably the most famous Hell in the Cell picture, or one of the most famous Hell in the Cell pictures, because it's just such a cool moment, especially somebody his size coming off.
Absolutely. And like you say, production value, that's what it comes to. And it's that puzzle throughout the whole evening. Like we said there, we've had every little tweak of the puzzle going for the whole evening to then get to the match, to have the truck come out, to then, you know, follow it up and get to this point. You know, it's just beautiful to see, like, you know, where we've gone from the start, we've got a middle and we've got an end here, and we've got a payoff with this truck that's come out in the middle of the match because Vince wants this to stop, caused all the chaos, made it 10 times worse than what it could have been.
I think it just made sense, didn't it? Like you said, the production value of it, the camera cuts and everything all worked, but also it just makes sense. Like, the story makes sense, and that's something that I feel that we'll lose sometimes as well. We don't get as much story that makes sense anymore. Kind of sacrificed that a little bit, but this just makes sense. And try to explain to somebody how it makes sense that the owner of the company who's took a construction truck from the back out, it doesn't even sound like it makes sense, but it really does make sense when you watch it.
Seeing is believing on everything. That's what it comes down to. And obviously, from that point, we can write Rikishi and Undertaker out of this match from this point. And then I mentioned it, we get the stare down of Austin and The Rock just to see everyone get excited. Obviously, you know, that we know that would lead to the main event of WrestleMania 17 just a few months down the line. But obviously, Austin hits his stunner on The Rock. It looks like that he's going to pick up the victory, but Triple H is in there. Then Austin goes for a stunner at the same time. I should mention actually that Kurt Angle is out of it in the ring, by the way, at this point as well. I believe he was had taken some sort of stunner or some sort of rock bottom. I think it was the rock bottom he'd taken earlier on at this point. But Triple H was then going to be stunned. He counters it into a neck breaker. But at the same time, The Rock is laid out in the ring from the stunner, and Kurt Angle somehow just manages to get his arm over to just lay it on top of the Rock. And while those two can't get to the pinfall, Kurt Angle gets the victory and retains the WWF Championship, which, of course, for me, I think alongside with Backlash 2007, has to be one of the most exciting finishes to a match ever of multiple superstars.
Yeah, definitely, man. I think it was the best call to end the match like that as well. But like you said about Austin Rock, they're starting to plant the seeds already. It's something, again, not to bring it back to the modern days. In WWE especially, we don't see, they're no laying seeds for a feud just now that's going to happen in 4 months from now. We're not seeing that at all. Like, they're not starting to book the UK pay-per-view just yet. They'll wait for 2 weeks before it. And it's just something, that's what I mean with the storytelling, we're missing it. AEW obviously need to tell stories long-term in advance because they've only got 4 pay-per-views of the year and a few special shows. So they need to tell it long-term. But even if it had every month it had pay-per-views, would they change it? I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I miss that time in wrestling when it's like the Rock, Austin, they just stare at each other. That look, and you know something's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know you've still got the Royal Rumble, No Way Out in WrestleMania, like to kind of build up to it. But you just know from that wee look, that's the seed being planted, and we're going to let it grow for the next 3 months, which is something I really miss. But I love the ending of it, just Angle getting that kind of escape, like he's just survived. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But just to prove the point as well that no one gets out of this unscathed, Kurt Angle gets to his feet, doesn't he? Holds the championship up, but then to go off air just to give a different pace, I suppose, for the audience to have something to go home happy with. A Stone Cold Stunner's hit one more time from Austin. Every superstar is laid out, and the story then going off the show is, well, this is what we've left, the carnage in the ring. Are these superstars going to be all right for tomorrow night? The pressure is on Mick Foley after making this match. So not only have we got the story going into the pay-per-view, there's a story going out of the pay-per-view as well.
We don't get that either, don't we? No, we don't get like the tune in tomorrow and see what happens. Like, we don't get any of that anymore. And it's just, I miss I sound like an old man saying that back in the old day. It was the in-ring quality now is so much better than back what it was then. But the stories are so much shitter now than what they were then. Like, there needs to be a sacrificed story for in-ring ability. Having a 5-star match with a shit story, it's a shit match. I think you're not going to buy it. Well, I'm enjoying the match, but you try to watch it with like your wife or your kids or something. They're not interested in it. They just want to see somebody big. They want to see a Undertaker who's maybe a dead man fight Stone Cold drinking beer. They don't really care. They just want to see the match. They're there to buy it like a story. And I miss that about wrestling. But coming off air, like you said, everybody in this is involved in that title picture, and they still go on. There's so many ways that they can go from it, and there's so many matches that come from this as well, which is, it just makes sense, and it's just really good. I don't know what else to say about it.
But it is.
This is probably the best match I think we've done. Well, for me, being on the show, I've done in a retro review, because this is just, I just sat with a smile on my face. I looked at the clock and I was like, what is it, 40 minutes including entrances went by? Like, I was like, what the hell? How's so much time just passed by? And it doesn't seem like it was just so easy to watch, and there's so much going on. It's all over the place, and I just miss that time in wrestling. I really did, because not just being a kid, whatever. You can go back and watch it. You just miss that kind of, the guys in it as well. Guerrero, Malenko, Austin, Angle, Rock, Taker. Just missed that period.
We were so blessed with such a talented roster. And like you said, we took so much for granted at that time. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, like you said, we have a very talented roster now, but we don't get to see them show what they could potentially be, show the potential of what they've got. We see to a certain level of things. Yeah, we enjoy the matches, we enjoy this. But like you said, the storytelling, cliffhangers, stuff like that. I need more of that in my current product. It would take it from being a good product or an all right product to what could be a very good product, and what I need to see it every single week. I think there is arguments that sometimes in wrestling, I mean, there was a lot of it, but with every company that you could say, I didn't need to see that week. I could have just seen the highlights or just heard about it. I didn't need to sit out of my way. And back in these days, especially around what surrounds this, you need to see every layer of it, because all of it connects together and it all makes sense. And without knowing a chunk of that story, you're going to be lost. And I think that's something that was so good about what was going on around then. Definitely.
And also the point with this is you had like the wrestling magazines as well. I remember watching, getting the magazine and going through, and it had like the little clips of the matches that were in it. I remember getting the magazine, going through it for this match, and I had this match on VHS because I taped it when I was at my friend's house, and that got ruined. Like you'll remember watching VHS too many times.
Yeah.
The wheels just broke the way ribbon. Now we're sounding like we come from a different planet now, aren't we? Like the wheel and the ribbon when we're trying to watch something. Like this did exist not that long ago. But I just missed this period. Like you said, cliffhangers and like AEW try and do it, and I know people are going to moan. I always get shouted at my channel about it. They don't do it as good as what they can do it. They can do it better. Like it's no even like it's no if there's a lack of content. Pay $9.99, watch the WWE Network, and go back and see how they told the story back then. We've got the information there. I just missed like that. Like you said, it just felt like important. Like you had to. It's like if a UFC has the ability to make it feel important. Like they know how to make their fight feel important, and WWE have just somehow managed to just forget. I think this weekend we've got Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes. It doesn't feel important anymore. This is the third match. I know how it's going to go, but if they end the match with the two of them bloodied and knocked out, they have to end the match and call people in. You need to come in on Monday and see what happens. So we've had to end the match, come in and see what's going to happen on Monday. That's just a silly cliffhanger like that would get us at least a wee bit excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting how they will play with that this Sunday. It's going to be a really fun time indeed. But like you say, to have that feeling, and like you say, this is a very special storyline that obviously, even for around that time period, they told this story exceptionally well. This is better than even perhaps a lot of stories around that period. This is at the top level of the Attitude Era, if you want. Like you say, it's almost like if you, like you said earlier in the video, if this is what you want to say, what is the Attitude Era? Go and check this out. This is what it is all about. And obviously, to give a rating then for this match, obviously, Dave Mercer gave this 4.5 star. What are you going to give it?
You know, I wrote 4 stars down, but after going through it again, I've watched it twice this week. I'm going to go for 5. It was fantastic. It was wrestling, wasn't it? It's like when you watch an old WCW War Games, like a good one, not the one when they brought out like RoboCop and shit like that, like a good one. It was just good wrestling. Like, there's wrestling there, there's entertainment, there's blood, there's comedy, there's everything in wrestling, everything about Attitude Era is in this match, and that's how people should go watch it. But I'm going to say a 5 stars for this. It was brilliant to watch.
Remember the day, ladies and gentlemen. A 5-star there came from Barry on a SCW rewind. I have to agree with you wholeheartedly. Like you said, it had everything, every layer, the story, the connection of what builds to it, what, like you said, every category that we've got all thrown into one. You can laugh, you can cry, you can feel, oh my God moments. It's everything in this match is delivered, and it's delivered throughout this entire evening, and it is spectacular to say the very, very least. Arguably, in my opinion, it's in the top 5 Hell in a Cell matches of all time. I know Barry has done a video which is featured in the top 10, but I'm not going to tell you where it is. You've got to go and check his video out to go and find out where it is. It's a very good video as well, and got a great lot of nostalgic, great classic Hell in a Cell matches that are featured in that top 10 list. But overall, Barry, we'll switch it rather from a 5-star. We'll do a score out of 10. What would be your overall rating of out of 10 for this show for people as a recommendation?
Do you know what? If it's for the show, I would say a 6 out of 10. But for that 40-minute match, catch the clips for it, even watch the Raw and the SmackDown before it, I'd say 10 out of 10 just to get that match, because the Raw and the SmackDown has good matches on it before it as well, like Austin Rock, Taker and Angle, and then the Rikishi stuff, and that explains it when you're watching it. 10 out of 10 for that. But for this show, I would say 6 out of 10, because it's a slog to get here, isn't it? Like, there's a lot of matches that are just like, why is this even here?
Yeah, there are some tough moments in this show, we won't lie. But like you said, sometimes, the great is great. And sometimes I'm going to say it's how you leave them, folks. I will go for a 7, just purely because, coming off of that show, you feel a big high. You almost sit and go, I could watch that again. That's, even though you realise you sat through stuff and you think to yourself, hang on, that wasn't as good on the show. But I think for me, it's 7 out of 10. But like you said, if you're going to put this in the category on its own, we'd give it the 5-star, the whole build, everything about it. This has to be 10 out of 10 for this part alone. But phenomenal. Really enjoyed going through this SCW rewind. Barry, before we close off the stream today, anything you'd like to share with everybody? Maybe plug on from your channel?
Just me shouting about wrestling. Tomorrow I've got my This Week in Wrestling. I'll be giving my Hell in Cell predictions. I'll be talking about how I would have booked the Hell in the Cell instead of from the way WWE have managed to mess it up. I'll be going through how the show hasn't been booked right, the MJF promo, CM Punk saying he wasted 10 years, and there's a good rant. Yeah, I know you'll enjoy it, Steve. There's a good 5-minute rant about that, but aye, that's tomorrow. Next week, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. I turn 31 next Friday, so I'm just going to probably be taking the week off, or I might do a Q&A. I don't know. I'll see what happens.
Well, I will say happy birthday in advance for next Friday. Hope that you have a fantastic day ahead. And do go and subscribe to his channel. I'll give him an early birthday gift. Go and subscribe to Non-Stop Wrestling Chat. I think that certainly is a bow of a present that he'd like to unwrap and wake up and find a few more subscribers tomorrow. For myself as well, go and subscribe to SCW if you haven't already. If you're watching this video as well, please do hit a like on it. It really helps with the algorithms and stuff. If you can drop a comment afterwards as well, really, really would appreciate it. Obviously, there are other videos on the channel right now. More retro reviews with myself and Barry, so go and check them out. There is a actual playlist in the where my video is, with SCW Rewinds. You've got a whole host of shows you can go and select through on there. Some good, some bad, some in between. So I do recommend those. But as well as that, obviously, we've got Hell in a Cell 2022 this weekend. I did a live stream for that yesterday with Josie Chats Wrestling. I'll check out those predictions now. And as well as that, NXT in your house, the predictions are available for that as well. And I think it's a fun video. So go and check those out if you get the opportunity. I'm looking to try and do an MJF fantasy booking video as well if you're into AEW. We'll be back with another SCW Rewind very soon as well. But thanks for watching. Take care. Look after yourselves. And this has been Armageddon 2000, a retro review. It's been a lot of fun as well. The end is here. Take care.